I'm Brian Foster, and this is the Grindhouse Institute. On each episode of this podcast, Jeremy Floyd and I program a double or triple feature movie night. Each of the movies share common themes, and we discuss them here. We're happy you could join us for today's episode we call Lynch Noir. After finding success with Eraserhead and The Elephant Man, David Lynch became a sought-after talent in Hollywood. However, the failure of Dune threatened to derail his rising career. Fortunately, he gained the trust of producer Dino De Laurentiis, and together they created a surreal neo-noir film that captivated audiences at Cannes and marked the birth of Lynch Noir. On today's show, we'll be exploring three such films. A young suburban college student discovers a severed human ear, drawing him into the sinister underworld of a sadistic drug lord and his tormented relationship with a troubled lounge singer. Kyle MacLachlan, Laura Dern, Isabella Rossellini, and Dennis Hopper star in Blue Velvet from 1986. A jazz saxophonist haunted by his suspicions of his wife's infidelity unknowingly becomes entangled in a violent crime that lands him in prison. Meanwhile, a young mechanic falls for a mysterious femme fatale who may lead him down a deadly path as well. As their stories unfold, their lives intersect in more ways than one. Bill Pullman, Patricia Arquette, Balthazar Getty, Robert Loggia, and Robert Blake star in David Lynch's Lost Highway from 1997. Betty, a hopeful young actress, arrives in Los Angeles with dreams of stardom and soon befriends Rita, a mysterious woman suffering from amnesia. As they try to piece together the secrets of Rita's past, Betty is thrust into the dark and unforgiving reality of Hollywood. Will her story have a Hollywood ending? Is she the girl? Naomi Watts, Laura Haring, Justin Theroux, and a killer cast star in David Lynch's Mulholland Drive from 2001. Thank you for listening to the Grindhouse Institute. Please enjoy. We miss you, David Lynch.
Howdy.
Howdy to you.
We've met before, haven't we?
Where was it you think we met?
At your house, don't you remember? As a matter of fact, I'm there right now.
I got to thinking, I'll bet someone could learn a lot by getting into that woman's apartment. You know, sneak in, hide, and observe.
Are you crazy?
Don't you even want to hear the plan?
Well, you can tell me any plan you want, but it's not going any further than this diner.
I had a dream about this place. I'm in here. And I'm scared like I can't tell you. Of all people, you're standing right over there. And you're scared. I get even more frightened when I see how afraid you are, and then I realize what it is. There's a man in back of this place. He's the one who's doing it.
You have company.
Hi. You want to say hi?
Hi.
You can say hi.
Hello.
Hi.
There you go.
Hi.
I guess we have another special guest.
Can I do the hair?
Can I finish this? Go on.
Come on,
Go on, Mama.
come with me. Let's go on our walk.
Hello.
Hi, Chrissy.
He said hi. No, they said hi. I said, yeah. I get in trouble with all the things I say.
Yeah.
Like, I am the worst. All right, sorry about that,
Are you about
guys.
to turn into Bill Pullman here?
Actually, I'm going to turn into Balthazar Getty, right?
Yeah.
That might even be scarier.
Yeah.
With that family specifically.
Oh, yeah. We should definitely get into that. So sorry, guys. A little practice run there. We'll get started.
Yeah.
Okay.
What happened? Somebody giving you trouble?
No trouble.
Because if somebody's giving you trouble, Pete, I can take care of the problem. Like that.
No, I'm fine, Mr. Eddie.
I mean it, Pete. Like that.
This is the girl.
Don't show me this fucking thing here.
It's just an actress's photo resume. Everybody's got one.
You got the money?
I sure do.
Okay, now once you hand that over to me, it's a done deal. You sure you want this?
More than anything in this world,
Welcome back to the Grindhouse Institute. I'm Brian Foster, and with me as always is Jeremy Floyd. Hello, and how are you?
Brian, I'm beautiful. Smooth as shit from a duck's ass.
Want to go for a ride?
Yeah. I hate tailgating.
So today's show, we're discussing a small slice of the film career of David Keith Lynch, a master storyteller who, unfortunately, we lost in January. I just shy of his 79th birthday, I believe. That's how that ended up.
Yeah, it was like a day or two before, yeah.
Yeah, a few days before. He intersected with several mediums, film, short film, commercial, painting, animation, weather reports. But without him, this term that we speak of called Lynchian wouldn't exist. It's definitely a style that, he created. Many people try to replicate. None can really match because he was truly the master of that. And today we're discussing 3 of his films with some special guests. Jeremy, if you could please introduce our special panel today, I should say.
Yeah. Well, we're doing, kind of a focus on Lynch's more film noir style, if you can even call it that, because they're still so Lynchian. And so if we've ever done a film noir episode, it pretty much always has this next guest, which is the host of OnlyFilmNoir, Alex Vlahov. Welcome back.
Thanks
it's been
for
so
having me
long
back.
since you've been here.
I know. Well, what's so funny, thanks for having me back, first of all. Always a pleasure to see you. It's so funny how organically this wove into the last conversation, because Lynch came up and then LA almost burned completely and Lynch died, and it was just an awful January for multiple other reasons as well. I mean, so, I just feel like January was so long. It's great to see familiar friendly faces and talk about an artist we all dug quite a bit.
Absolutely. And we've got another guest today, one of my favorite people to talk to films with, the co-host of Film Suck and, film critic at Jacobin, and my former film professor who taught some of these films, Eileen Jones.
Hi.
Welcome back.
It's a thrill to be here.
Welcome back, Eileen. It's very nice to see you.
Well, thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, and this one, it actually has been too long.
Yeah.
It's been a while, a couple years, I think.
Was it horror?
It's nice to be back.
Was it Val Luton?
Maybe Val Luton? I
Val
don't remember.
Luton, maybe.
Yeah.
That's a long time now.
Probably.
Yeah, we
How cool.
we need to do more Val Luton. So today we're discussing 3 of, like Jeremy said, more of his Lynchian noir. I think that this is really where Lynch developed his cinematic style here in these films, or at least in this first one. Blue Velvet from 1986. Then we go to Lost Highway from 1997, transporting me right back to high school, seeing this in the theater for the first time. It was the first Lynch I got to see, and so it was a real special one. And Mulholland Drive from 2001. 3 films I think that truly feel like Lynch, but then also are in that neo-surrealist noir, whatever he's creating, this Lynchian vibe. And I think this is a great example of these. So let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, and I think, Blue Velvet is a really interesting place to start because it sort of kicked off Lynch being more well-known. It's like, Eraserhead on its initial release, as I understand it, was, it has, sort of limited appeal and all this, and, kind
of an underground midnight movie.
Exactly.
Yeah, cult film, yeah.
Cult film, which, usually means that it didn't get attention right out the gate. And, then he goes to Elephant Man.
So it got the right attention, right? Mel Brooks and...
Mel Brooks.
Yes. Which I didn't know for years that Mel Brooks was the producer, or I didn't recall for years that he was the producer on that. And then Dune, and then Blue Velvet was starting while Dune was still in post and, hadn't quite bombed yet. And
did Lynch see the writing on the wall with Dune and kind of go to Dino and be like, I've got a better version of me here? I don't know how that really went down, if anyone does know, but yeah, that's kind of how it flew, right? Dune and then this, and it was just like, there we go. This is the guy.
And then this is it felt like the announcement of what his cinematic voice has to offer.
Yeah, and it was very divisive. It had huge proponents, people raving, but it also had a lot of mainstream critics walking out, and Roger Ebert famously destroys it with a terrible I think it's a 1-star pan. And Mark Kermode walked out on the film, and yeah.
I remember my parents said they went to watch it, which was like, it's crazy. This is not the type of movie either one of them would be excited about. But it stuck with my dad, 20 years later, he brought it up, and so it's like, particularly the scene where Kyle MacLachlan walks into the apartment and there's a dead guy on the couch and a dead guy standing up, or almost dead guy standing up. And it was like,
not sure how he was balancing with his brains oozing out of his head. Yeah.
That's my favorite shot.
Zombie.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's the scariest part. To me, you don't know what's going on when you enter that space. I also love that it's re-entering a space, which I also love in noir, when you have to go back somewhere.
But it's transformed and it's like a new space.
Changed. Yeah. It's weird that this came out in the 80s around the same time, roughly, as Stand By Me and River's Edge. Other stories of like a body, something in your hometown, teenagers, kind of retro throwback. I just think that there's something in the air. Obviously, the 80s is obsessed with the 50s.
50s, yeah.
Yeah, Back to the Future being the famous example. There's tons of others. But like, there was something going on of like investigating maybe it's New Hollywood, like getting a little older, going like backwards, a lot of suburbs with a lot of these kids, what's like going on where I'm from, where America feels safe. I mean, it's also, there's really great noirs set in the suburbs. I think of Suddenly, the Sinatra noir, where there's like an assassination attempt.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Cause for Alarm was one that I always really liked.
Pitfall's
fantastic. Yeah. So this was like an established thing, and he's just sort of like he started this in 1973. I mean, some of these images came to him. I think The Ear is one of the early ones, but yeah, this all kind of came in different ways since 73. So he was marinating on this for a long time.
Right.
Yeah. And just as a quick aside before we continue with Lynch, you brought up Suddenly. That was one of the movies we watched on our first episode, Brian, and it is also in the public domain, so it's on our YouTube page.
Oh,
if you want to check that out.
So, assassination films, pre-JFK assassination films.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here's to your health. Shit, let's drink to something else. Say, here's to your fuck, Frank. If you like, Frank. Here's to your fuck. Cheers.
For me, watching it, and again, watching this in a kind of cineplexy atmosphere was just such an amazing, wonderful hit then. But
did you see it when it first came out?
Yeah, when it first came out, it was the Reagan era, and that was the government obsessed with the 50s and of going back. We're going to return to the better time.
Totally,
yeah.
More than I mean, it was like all the cultural in general. And why was that? Why? Because it's like the 60s was so disruptive to the psyche, and no one wanted it. And let's go back. Let's go back.
Yes.
Let's go
Morning
back to
in America
my
definitely means
it was safe. And
yes, what was supposedly the best of America, which is having a very myopic view of what the 50s was. But for certain people, that's the only thing that matters. Yeah.
And I think for my generation, our Brian and I's generation, like, the millennials had that same situation. I mean, you think about in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and the sort of fold back to the 80s of everyone kind of crawling back into the womb of like, I was a kid in the 80s and Stranger Things and, that all the 80s aesthetic that still is around right now, like the substance was very 80s too, and that just came out. And it's like, because it's in the rearview mirror and because you can pretend like some of the more disgusting things that were happening in that decade weren't happening because, you were a kid and you didn't know about them or whatever. There's this comfort level. And I think for Lynch's generation and the other people, the boomers his age, who recall the 50s, they are only recalling sort of like, well, that was what was on, Leave It to Beaver and whatnot. And like the Nick at Night reruns are telling me that this is what the world was like, and
these aren't
sort
historical
of
records.
Isn't what what they recall. But Lynch like plays with that exact idea in the opening shot, right? It's like he shows you the sort of like Father Knows Best sitcom house. And then goes directly into the dirt and bugs.
After first giving Dad a heart attack and having the family dog basically go on the attack.
I mean, that was like had to be the worst, like life-changing heart attack too, because he was hooked up to every single device by the time he's in the hospital. Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, you could definitely feel that there was like a sharp divide. The fire truck coming by and waving, and the nice music playing, and then all of a sudden somebody's grabbing their chest, and then you're in the ground.
Like very much like undermining the tropes that it was.
Fence.
Yeah, exactly. All that stuff.
Yeah. Because we were all forced to macerate in the overwhelming quality of the Reagan. You know, he wins in a landslide, and it's just
in 84, yeah,
the world literally changed because so many people's thinking changed. And if you were in any way inclined to be left wing, you were watching your own death, basically.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, you were just nowhere in the culture.
This is completely unrelated to now.
Yeah, this
right?
is not happening now. No. Sounds weird.
So,
this is so foreign.
Like deja vu.
No one can imagine what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't get this. Yeah.
No, exactly. So anyway, we already did this. It's happening again, as David Lynch would have someone say.
Twin Peaks, yeah.
I think we keep going back to these historical records and Leave It to Beaver, and
Yeah.
He lost his house in the fire. The It's Happening Again tall man from Twin Peaks. The very, very tall man. Also Lurch, that actor from Addams Family.
Yeah. He was also in Men in Black. He's the he's the one that's like transporting the galaxy or helping
Carl Strucken. I want to make sure I'm saying the right name. Carol Strucken.
What an image.
What an image. Fun sidebar, just since this is the episode. The day of Lynch's birthday, a couple of days after he died, I've stopped by Bob's Big Boy, the shrine.
Nice.
The woodsman from Twin Peaks was there.
Oh.
And we had our puppy. So it was, and his wife was wearing the nuclear bomb image shirt.
Oh, yeah.
And oh, my gosh.
She got talking to my girlfriend because, we had the puppy. It was kind of disarming. Other people, I think, were kind of asking him about like, hey, I saw you at Comic-Con, or like asking him Lynch questions, very specific Twin Peaks questions. But he kind of played with our puppy. And then she was talking to Jordan. And apparently he's very famous for his Abe Lincoln impersonations. He kind of does that like in historical accounts.
Thing, right?
And she plays Mary Todd, and she talks about all the parallels of their life. It was great. It was great to meet him. I never do this. I took a photo with him. It was like, it's the shrine in the building, and him. LA, you meet so many people. I would never ask to take a photo. I took a photo with him, and he mentioned this guy came up, and the fact that he just lost his home. So they have dinners. The Twin Peaks cast. She says they have dinners. I don't know how regular it is, but like that shows me just how people that work with him really kind of stay in touch. It's kind of great to hear that.
I mean, you see it in his movies, right? He brings people back all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. I wanted to share that anecdote since Carol Strucken came up, and Jack Nance. I mean, all not Mulholland Drive, but from the beginning up to Lost Highway.
To Lost Highway,
yeah. Sorry, back to Blue Velvet. Didn't mean to.
Please, I think this is more about Lynch than anything, right? So
for sure,
feel free to freeform here. Yeah. Eileen, I know we keep bouncing around the theater experience, but I would like to know, not from the Reagan and the cultural experience you had, but honestly, like what it was like to be in the theater, seeing this, hearing this movie, because this had to be something very new, even after Eraserhead. Yeah,
it was. We were stunned, and we were into Lynch already.
Right.
I mean, we went to the midnight movie. We were undergraduates at the time when it was still running.
But he went from something that was so deep, surreal, and makeup effects oriented to something that could feel like could happen next door. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
So we were dazed. We were just, I was with two friends, and we were all just silent and staring and we came out in the same condition, like couldn't believe what was happening. And other people started drifting out, all hating the film. Just talking about, well, that was so weird. Oh my God, what was that? Just really hostile. And just people drift, and we're just standing there. And then we all look at each other and
watch
go,
a different movie?
Yeah. And we were like, that was great, wasn't it? I mean, we just felt all dazed and confused, like, what's happening? Yeah. But of course, thereafter, we became even more like Lynch fanatics, because he just seemed like, to me, someone is talking to me finally. Somebody's talking to me about, and that I had felt that in a different way with Eraserhead. But you're right. Now it was much more multiplex friendly, and he's found a way to talk to me again. But he's not talking to everybody, because all these other people hate him.
No, I don't think he cares to talk to everybody or cared to talk.
He definitely doesn't.
Yeah. Because I mean, every time he was asked, like, what does this mean? He goes, what does it mean? You know, he always would throw it back to the audience. It's like, take what you want from it. This is art.
Right. Or politically, when people try to pin him down politically, somebody will say, are you Republican? Are you this? Are you left wing? And he'll be like, nobody from any side will talk to me if it came to political position. So he just refuses. It's perfect.
I mean, it's a film where a local small-time drug kingpin is corroborating with the police force, the Yellow Man, and controls the drug racket in a small town and provides access to a bunch of weirdos. And the film is like 3% about that. You know what I mean? That's what I love about it. It's all the liminal space and the sidebars and almost, not to use the the modern video game parlance. I'm not even a gamer, but I think they're called side quests. I mean, Kyle MacLachlan is on a lot of fucking side quests in this movie.
Yes, he is.
I mean, going into the closets, yeah.
But it's still fundamentally, discovering your own town and your own self, which is very noir.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's sort of like Alfred Hitchcock, Shadow of a Doubt, where it's the idyllic small town of Santa Rosa, California. And when you first see them, it's Lynchian. It's the friendly traffic cop waving and everyone's smiling and all the townspeople in the trees and it's all nice, suburban homes. And then your murderous Uncle Charlie, your serial killer Uncle Charlie shows up and suddenly the whole place reveals the t9u club, this really edgy, seedy bar where she meets someone she went to high school with. And all of a sudden, for this teenage girl, her town reveals itself for having this dark underbelly that was always there, hidden in plain sight. So he does the same thing. He sees what was always there and finds out about aspects of himself that were always there. And this is a very noir preoccupation. The reveal that the world that you might even suspect is bad is so much worse. And often you are so much worse than you ever reckoned with. So it's this kind of simultaneous nightmare that is also real at the same time.
I'm so glad you brought up Shadow of a Doubt because they have the two characters that are obsessed with true crime.
Yes, the Hume Cronin and her dad.
Hume Cronin. That's right. And similarly, I would say true crime are some of the earliest stories told. I think I've touched on this on the podcast before, whether our crime of a human against another human and how that carries through a community, right? So I would say Kyle MacLachlan, Jeffrey Beaumont's investigative instinct, what draws Laura Dern in is the same salacious true crime interest. But then also there's this, like you said, it's in us too, right? Doesn't Frank literally say to him, "You're just like me"? You're like me. That's like the scariest part with the headlines. He looks at him. You're like me, and ultimately, it's true because he's pursuing this and seeing it to the end.
And Sandy says to him, "I don't know if you're a detective or a pervert." Something like that.
For you to know, or for me to know, and you to find out.
And me to find out. Oh, he thinks he's being so
response.
Cool.
And the universality of that, of us all being in a way pattern-seeking humans, makes
duality,
absolutely. And the analogy to a detective, very easy to place yourself and sympathize with. I love that it plays with that and toys with that and it kind of throws it back at you. And I think the aversion to it is something, I think that it makes people see something either in themselves or in the world that they just don't like. So I think a lot of people turn away from it. I think I remember bringing this up to my parents and it was just like, oh no, that's just dismissive, it's like a thing.
It's just not true. And if you're into noir beyond in just a superficial way, that's very much, it seems like it's trying to have a reckoning in an adult way with the world we have wrought, what we're in right now. Yeah. And that's the most bracing aspect, I think, of the genre, at least at its best, is it's this confrontation that is taken seriously at some level for all of its potboilery luridness. Right. You have an awful lot of shots, usually of men, with an expression of utter shock and horror on their faces. They realize how bad it is, just how bad it is. And in a lot of neo-noir, you don't find that. You don't find that almost mind-blown sense of I can't even take it in how bad it is, or how bad I am, or how bad she is, and what that says about the world and me, that I can't resist her, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
neo-noir tends to be like, isn't it cool? It's so like, everything's so hot. The sex is so great. You know, you're just like, no.
You're missing it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's that kind of cosmic horror almost.
Yeah.
Like, almost like, is the whole cosmos bad?
Right.
Is there a bad God?
Yeah.
It's at that level. And I think Lynch really goes for that. He's Mr. Transcendental Meditation is always ready to encounter the cosmically bad, I think.
Yeah, and like I think that's a good point to talk about. It is like how all these films in particular are very, very much that feeling of having this like waking dream, that
nightmare,
that meditation turned inward, that like these slightly disconnected intellectually but sort of connected thematically and emotionally moments throughout the thing that sort of only make sense in that dream logic. And it's everything. It's like the way he goes in too deep to this thing that rationally you're like, well, that's none of my business. What am I doing this for? Like, who cares? He's going to help the cops. The cops don't care. So why does he care? And like, and even just down to like little things like Kyle MacLachlan first meets Laura Dern and he like hears a noise, looks over to the trees. It's dark at night. And then like just slowly, she comes out of the darkness as if she was like conjured or something. It was like it's this very
she
like
appeared.
A ghostly appearance. It's very striking.
You know who also comes out of the darkness is Dorothy later, naked on his lawn in one of the most arresting shots.
Right.
And that's also one of my favorite moments because suddenly Mike is like, hey man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, dude. Like his immediate backing up of like, oh, I am in over my head is so human and funny and just like
take care of your shit, dude. I'm gonna get out of your way now. Go on.
Yeah.
And of course that refers to the most often told tale of David Lynch of his own life.
Right.
It's formative that he and his little brother, and they're both super young. He's, I don't know, 7 or his brother's 10. I forget what it is. And they see a naked woman. And there are various stories of how much damage has been done to her. Sometimes it's her mouth looks maybe bleeding. Sometimes she's blood all over. I've heard various versions or read various versions. But it's the one he gives more than any other. In his little small town idyllic childhood, very Boy Scout, a naked woman walks in, and it's not about the erotics. It means this is horrifying and terrible. Something absolutely awful has happened, and I'm a helpless kid and can't do anything about it. So that of all things connects to an inspirational reality for David Lynch really gets to the core of his cinema. I think he was always talking about little tales of childhood, of seeing things that he locked in his brain. One other is he looked at a nice tree in a park or something in Montana or wherever the hell he was at the time, Washington. He was all these states in the West and Midwest. And everyone's like, nice tree. And he sees yellow gunk oozing out of the trunk and red ants swarming in, and he's like, and I felt like I was the only one who saw these awful things. But definitely the naked woman that terrorized his imagination is the number one story from David Lynch.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Wow. It stops everything and makes you reckon with all that nightmare and dream logic.
Yeah.
He connects it to a horrific reality that happened to him. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know about y'all, but being very young and accidentally seeing an adult naked form is very alarming. It's like,
alarming.
Wow, that is bizarre and almost just abstract. It's your mind kind of puts it into like a box somewhere, like in an own little drawer. I even remember like seeing like magazine, like a porn magazine, like in elementary school, like in the bushes, and like with friends being like, "What is this?" And it being kind of scary.
Kid.
Yeah, scary.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
But I like to bring this up because everyone talks about Lynch, and what you should in terms of the surreal and dreams and dream logic, but people get awfully literal about it. So if say you go online and you read or watch YouTube videos of people explaining Mulholland Drive, they invariably want to say
ending explain.
This is the dream part. This is the real life part.
Oh, I don't. Yeah.
And they use as an example of proof the diner scene. Sorry, I'm jumping to Mulholland Drive, but just quickly.
Oh yeah, go. Yeah.
There's a diner scene at Winky's where somebody overtly tells their dream. And their companion says, oh, you're afraid of this monster thing in the dumpster behind this fairy diner?
Right.
Let's go look. You'll see it doesn't exist, and then you'll feel better. And they go behind and then the monstrous thing comes out. And
second best jump scare in cinema. Yeah.
But in people's arguments, see, that means Lynch means some of this film is a dream, and we will now identify. And I'm like, no, doesn't it mean the porous nature of these different levels of reality bleed together?
Right.
And so if you try to explain Mulholland Drive in terms of this is a dream and this is reality, you've just ruined and destroyed the impact of Mulholland Drive.
And the person explaining it goes around the corner and is like, oh!
Exactly. And passes out in terror.
Yeah.
God damn.
I would say the viewer is just as porous, and that changes when you see it. I mean, that was the first one I saw of his, and I was like, oh, all right, that's LA. I just thought
this is my feeling exactly. I was living in LA then, and I thought he has completely nailed LA down. This is LA. I've had the same reaction.
We might be getting ahead of it, but just the banal design of most of Mulholland Drive, except for when it's not and pops, it really does have that late 90s, 2000s mall bought fashion style. Like, especially her like really cheap pink sweater. I mean, there's just so many things that just look like from my childhood of like, oh, this is just how the world looks like regular furniture. And then suddenly there's a cowboy or pink paint, you know, when it matters. And I think he's really good at that, at like fusing the period that he's filming in. And we're all over the place now, but most example is the best one's Lost Highway, because that's such a 90s movie in so many ways. But, you know, even Blue Velvet has a little bit of the 80s seeping in, you know, a little bit of, you know, Jeffrey's style, you know, even though, you know, she does have Montgomery Clift on her, which is something I always love about, like, in films, like if they're characters in so many films, if they're watching a movie, it's so often like an old film, sometimes public domain just for convenience. But like, I never really buy it except for in David Lynch, because it's his whole thing. I mean, I love that she has the Montgomery Clift poster. In other films, I'd be like, that is a reach. This is a teenager in the 80s. That would be like a band, you know? Like, you know.
What's funny about, I mean, was Blue Velvet the first time we get crazy Dennis Hopper? And it sort of like became his career after that?
And then he became the same Dennis Hopper in the other film we saw that I'm blanking on the name of. Our Summer Noir.
Red Rock West.
Red Rock West. Yeah,
and you know,
he was Frank Booth in that for sure.
I mean, he's wild in Apocalypse Now, but he's not. But he's not Frank Booth.
He's not Frank Booth though.
This is the most insane performance I think I've ever seen him do. Like just the lines that he chooses. I mean, I'm sure some of that must have come from him, right? Like,
well, he said that's how he convinced Lynch. He said, "I have to do it because I am Frank Booth." I would have hoped everyone avoided Dennis Hopper after that. My God,
just pounding Pabst Blue Ribbon and
What kind of beer do you like? Heineken. Fuck that shit. Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Newly sober. He was newly sober, so I think he really wanted to get out there and work again. He did make another movie in the 80s with blue in the title. Has anyone seen Out of the Blue, his like punk movie?
No.
Great movie. It's one of he directed it. He was in it. It was a Canadian made-for-TV movie. And eventually, for some reason, he took over the directing of it. And it became very dark and music-oriented and teen subculture oriented, specifically punk, and has really dark, traumatic things that kind of align with Twin Peaks. And it just feels very complimentary to Lynch's films. Highly recommend Out of the Blue. But Hopper's trying to get his shit together at this time. So that's why he puts us up in River's Edge, Hoosiers famously. So
right.
Maybe that's why he has like a gas mask that's hooked up to nothing that he can kind of just pretend like he's getting high on. Like, I just never understood where that tank was hidden. You know, it's under his jacket.
I don't know anything. He was coaching Lynch through what someone who is a really depraved character wanting drug and sexual highs would do, and it's amyl nitrate he's breathing in. I don't know.
I have no idea.
Apparently, Lynch was going to do something that, you know, Hopper regarded as so naive, and he's like, "Man, this is what you believe me." This is what should be taken. And, you know, his compatriot, I think they were buddies as well, is Harry Dean Stanton. I mean, not Harry Dean Stanton, Dean Stockwell.
I get them mixed up all the time, too.
I know, and it's only a name thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Ben is scary. Ben is truly frightening.
Yeah. because he comes out of nowhere, his violence. Yeah.
And he designed his whole role, and his only mandate for himself, Lynch told him nothing, was I have to be even weirder than Hopper.
Yeah.
Given my position in this film. So he comes up with all of that, the hand bandage, the hair, the outfit.
The pancake makeup thing. And
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that he had because he almost like turns the dial down. It's such a contrast to the explosive rage to be so effete and soft. I didn't know that.
But there is the rage there, right? Like it comes out.
Yeah, the extreme oddity that is fully lived in. That it is no longer self-conscious, but if you encounter it, you're just going to be like, okay, I don't even know how to categorize this one. Yeah.
Like, where the hell are these people? This small town, they keep going to these different apartments, and you're a weirder place every single time.
You're like, and it's all these long shots so you can drink in how boring the room is.
Right. Right.
And that there are all these little old ladies serving, and you're like, what?
That's very John Waters coded. I got a very like John Waters sense with these women in the horn rimmed glasses.
The horn rimmed glasses and the big hair.
Yeah. The one I love, she goes along the ride. When he says, let's move, it just cuts away. You hear the tire squealing and they disappear. That's one of I love that moment. But then later when they're in the dark with the headlights, they play the music. The one that just instinctively gets on the car roof and starts dancing, apropos of nothing. I just love like the negotiation, the quiet, like, oh, this is what we do.
Yeah.
I still think the best cut though is from Pabst Blue Ribbon, and immediately it's like cuts to those old ladies, like real snappy.
It's funny. That's the weird.
I laughed a lot in this,
it's so
especially
funny.
watching it now. That's really funny.
Funny.
While being also very dark,
Even that shot of the weird people standing with their brains coming out at the end, I thought was kind of funny, like in a weird surrealistic way.
Oh no, Lynch can totally do the humor with violence and horror and alarm together, which is a very rare gift.
And I think that's kind of lost in Lost Highway. Lost Highway is very serious film compared to Blue Velvet and Mulholland. Mulholland Drive even has some funny slapsticky stuff even.
Yeah.
But Lost Highway does not feel that way to me. And rewatching it again, I remember not really understanding it then, really definitely not understanding it now, but kind of feeling like I get the mood of that movie, and I feel like I'm in tuned with it. I think of the three, though, I like Mulholland the best, but I loved rewatching Lost Highway because I got much more of it this time than I did in the 90s. Obviously, I'm 20, 30 years older, but I mean, that does help. But I mean, at the same time, I think you can kind of see understanding who Lynch is, like what he was trying to do with that movie. And I think he found it in the edit. I don't think that movie really makes sense from a script standpoint. You just kind of find it as you go and actually craft that thing.
Lost Highway, you mean?
Lost Highway.
Yeah.
I guess all of his films are really found in the edit, right? I mean, Mulholland Drive not even being a movie, being a TV show, a long form.
Yeah.
And like some of that stuff does seem disparate, but he makes it work in the edit.
Well, I will confess that my least favorite is Lost Highway. Lost Highway, Wild at Heart. And I blame an external element. I blame the collaboration with Barry Gifford. And I will tell you why. It has to do with film noir. Barry Gifford wrote a book about film noir called The Devil Thumbs a Ride. And I hate that book. I hate it so much.
Why is that?
Because he's got, I feel, this is me, you'd have to look at it yourself and decide, but he is the neo-noir juvenile approach to noir. It's all so cool, man. I'm just like, you're just an idiot. And so he brings this sensibility. I think he imports it and infects our wonderful David Lynch for a while. Where he throws off this unworthy companion. This is my take on why I don't like
Lost
very
Highway.
much. I mean, I appreciate Lost Highway more now. Same thing with another viewing.
Right.
But there's just a quality to it that, again, makes me miss Lynch. Like, this doesn't seem like full Lynch to me. So I have to blame somebody. So I blame Barry Gifford.
Well, and I think it is a lot of that, the absence of that humor in this one. This one is so grim. And like the...
It doesn't... It never makes you feel good.
The ugliness of it and... the darkness is sort of all it has to offer. Like, I mean, and it is maybe more of a horror movie in that sense.
More of a music video.
Yeah, and a music video, but it's like the dream of it all and like the nightmare of it all is, crank up to 11 on Lost Highway. That like the other two has those like those ups and downs and all kinds of like funny moments and like the mystery solving moments, but even in this one, like when the mystery is happening, it feels like you're so far in the head of Bill Pullman / Balthazar Getty's characters that like you are looking at the world with the ugliness with which they see the world. Whereas it feels like, even something like, in both Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive, you're not so far into one perspective. Mulholland, it feels like you are for most of it as a recollection of the movie. Like that's what you feel like. Oh, it's all Naomi Watts' perspective. But watching it again, you're like, oh wait, there's all these other like vignettes and all these other people that we kind of go through, and like all the
kind
crazy
of anthological
humor, and like the guy shooting through the wall and all this, which I'm sure we'll get to. But like in this one, it really, really stays locked in to the like, misogynist psyche of these characters, and like it's a very ugly and awful place to be, and it there's sort of no there's no release valve on it at all. That you do get in other places, and I wonder if maybe you're right. Maybe it is the influence of the co-writer, Barry Gifford.
I feel like if anything, some of the Robert Loggia stuff that came in kind of gave me a little bit of relief.
Never mind. I do kind of laugh at early Loggia in that movie
because he comes in that first time we meet Mr. Eddie. And it's that same like booming kind of noir soundtrack he's got going. But it also reminded me of that movie Innocent Blood, when also Robert Loggia comes in the same exact scene when he's like super gangster. Garlic. But I thought he was my favorite part of this movie, to be honest. Robert Loggia. I thought he kind of brought a little bit of relief.
Beautiful. Smooth as shit from a duck's ass.
Yeah, he gets the tailgating scene, which is a companion piece to the Pabst Blue Ribbon.
I hate tailgaters.
And that you feel that's very Lynch.
Yes,
very Lynch.
That scene felt very, very a Lynch dialogue scene. Yeah. A Lynch conflict.
I encourage you to study the driving manual.
yes, exactly.
The choices are so good there.
I want you to get a fucking driver's manual. I want you to study that motherfucker.
And I have to say that the charge of misogyny that's leveled at Lynch often, like Rebecca Solnitz, in response to all the tributes pouring out when Lynch died, tributes to him, she countered immediately with basically he's a misogynist and you all love him. And that's very, very bad. I do not agree. But when I watch Lost Highway, I feel it's a little more justified than it would be.
It's harder to defend,
A little more. I mean, even though it's touching, you read Patricia Arquette, and she really tries to. I think she felt very obviously vulnerable for good reason in playing that part.
The whole movie,
but she tried to come up with a way of reading it that was like, no, it is about misogyny, which I would say other of Lynch's films are as well.
Yeah.
In that, in her reading, it's all about this guy who just can't kill his wife often enough. He just keeps coming up with new ways of being in a male persona so he can kill her again in a new scenario.
And he keeps getting away with it, right? Because he can keep changing into the other person, and all of a sudden, all the cops are like, well, guess we got to let him go then. He just changed. He changed into an innocent person. Okay.
And it's also epic male impotence, which I think is a huge part. Not to bring it back, but Blue Velvet. I mean, so I do want to counter. I know I said it's very funny. It's also incredibly tragic and harrowing, and some of the most difficult moments to watch. But that's the thing, is that when he's yelling at her and breathing in the room. Apparently Lynch was kind of giggling during the filming of that scene between Hopper and I love hearing that, because it almost my reaction when I saw this at BAM, with the crowd, we were laughing and shocked. And I think that juxtaposition is what I love in his films. And it's like real life. Some of the saddest things have like little kernels that like are just so funny and human.
Alex, it was great you brought up the sort of impotence thing in Blue Velvet that I kind of forgotten about, which reminds me, like, in one of the early scenes of Lost Highway, I think it's the first time we're seeing Bill Pullman and Patricia Arquette having sex, and he sort of stops at one point and kind of rolls off her, and he kind of apologizes. It's okay. I was like, oh, was that he couldn't get it up moment, or what was it? And they didn't quite explain it, but I wonder if that is sort of what they were going for there. Because then, he asked her something.
Patting on the shoulder. The patting on the shoulder, right?
Yeah.
It's devastating.
Yeah.
Sorry, you can hear it. That's actually in the soundtrack for the film. That's actually one of the tracks, is that sound of her saying sorry underneath that like droning tone. Oh, that's actually a full track on the soundtrack. Wow. It's really interesting that they chose to pull that out.
Which, by the way, you're right. Like, we should talk about that too, because like this movie was made in this era of, I don't know what, the height of record company power or whatever.
Nine Inch
Nails. The soundtrack for this was so popular. It was everywhere. And like I was familiar with the soundtrack sort of long before I saw the movie. I think I saw it on video. I didn't see it in the theaters. But I was already like familiar with everything musically, because the soundtrack was just like pumped into your face everywhere. And you're right, like they had the sort of pop songs on the soundtrack, and those are just songs. But for all of the score, they would put in these little bits of dialogue, which is awful. If you like listening to soundtracks, then having those little like cues are the worst.
This isn't the soundtrack to go to sleep to. This isn't the Pulp Fiction one where you can kind of get into some of the songs. This is like all of a sudden you're woken up by some strange droning sound that's very Lynchian. But yeah. It's a good soundtrack though.
Oh, there's that drone in Blue Velvet, like it sounds like a train in the background, especially whenever he's in the stairwell. Apparently this was recorded in Prague. Badalamenti and Lynch were in Prague, and from what I understand, it was not the end of communism, so they were, I think, just kind of accepting that they were being surveilled, like that they were being tailed, and there's probably bugs in their hotel room, which is a funny parallel to a film about voyeurism and surveillance.
Right.
Yeah, just like a fun little metatextual element there.
Kyle MacLachlan with the like Stasi agent like spying on them in their closet.
The Lives of Others, starring Kyle MacLachlan. Yeah. But no, I love that train droning sound, because I'm from Fremont, California. We have that, like this regular train sound that comes through like a couple times an hour, and it does kind of sound like that. And of course it's, turned up with, a bit more atmospherically ominous here. But yeah, that does firmly bring me back to the suburbs, in a subconscious way when I'm watching it. Also, the yellow jacket feels like Dick Tracy to me. So there is this like playing of like old comic book interest, like capers and bad guys. But yeah,
don't you think when Dennis Hopper does the shooting gallery of the guys at the end was kind of comic-y as well, and he just kind of like takes them out, and they're
the guys hanging from the windows. It becomes very like childly cinematic about a crime caper, like almost like a 50s, like a Dick Tracy serial. So yeah, just a couple other things I wanted to touch on that kind of subconsciously seeped in from Blue Velvet. I think the last thing that was like really, we were talking about like how these things that stick with us and how they come together over the years of his films. The idea of Dorothy having a son apparently came from Helen Mirren. I don't know if you guys knew that, but Helen Mirren was almost cast. Isabella Rossellini obviously got the role, but she was. Helen Mirren apparently was like, I don't know why she would be so heartbroken or invested unless she had like a family member, like a son, like she like lost a son or was being held. So Lynch loved that idea and just sort of folded it in, which I'm a huge fan of, like the best ideas win, doesn't matter where they come from,
It gives her a happy ending too, a clear happy ending, right? Totally. She gets her last moment. Totally. That's a fun movie because it does end on such it's a really nice Hollywood kind of positive ending, right? Like everyone's in the yard barbecuing. Kyle MacLachlan's still in the same outfit as he's in the entire movie.
Well, it is, but what I love about it too is knowing, having gone through this with him, that he's got to be changed forever. I mean, again, to compare to Shadow of a Doubt, which doesn't have a happy ending, ends at a funeral of the serial killer, and she can't tell anyone. Like her family doesn't know, the community doesn't know. They're hearing him celebrated as this great citizen, and she just is like, she is forever isolated with her knowledge because she's been to hell and back in her own town.
Yeah.
And in herself.
And she
in her
doesn't want to
attraction to her
infect
uncle.
everyone else with what she knows. Yeah.
Right.
So she has to contain. So he is going to be the one. Lynch doesn't stress it at all. There's the whole Sandy and the robins catch the fake robin that catches the beetle in the end.
Yeah.
It's all sunny, but it's almost too sunny, right? It's too much.
But the bug brings you back, right? The fact
it does
that
remind you.
The bug brings you back a little bit. The entire tale you just saw, like, kind of undermines the happy-go-lucky part of that.
Mm-hmm. That speaks to him.
Yeah, but it's like, if you're worried about wondering if there is a happy ending or not a happy ending in Lost Highway, it doesn't even give you an option to believe that.
Yeah, I'd say if you didn't really fully get the story, that it doesn't end well. Yeah, you can figure out that that is more of a horror movie, I'd say, than any of his other ones, and I think that he definitely went into more sci-fi horror with this one than especially of his other. I mean, at least both Mulholland and Blue Velvet could exist here. I know there's some weird characters that are kind of out of range, but Lost Highway could never happen, like, at least in the reality that we understand. I mean, that's literally a shape-shifting movie, body horror. Also, some of the scenes in there that never really are totally relentless are when that guy flies through the table and he's wrestling with Bill Pullman and he flies into the table. I saw the behind the scenes of them, like, shooting that, and the way that they had that set up. Lynch, designed that entire scene, designed that artwork, that table. That's all from his brain. All of like the inside of the apartment's all from him. Where the things are placed. The TV's in a weird spot. I don't know if you guys you're just like, that is the most unfunctional room ever. Like, if you'd never sit comfortably. But that whole shot of him, like, he drew it out of him, that guy half into the table, half out. I mean, that's just it's a really rough scene to watch, but it's a really good just desserts for that guy. He's such a scumbag.
Yeah, you're right. I do take it back. Like, there is some humor in this, like in Lost Highway with Robert Loggia. Maybe some of that's a little unintentional. Yeah, because he's so hilarious. Yeah, and then, like, that scene in particular. I mean, that was always funny, and it is sort of a dream thing too, where it's like, oh no, where's this going to go? And then, boom, it changes and it's funny and it's bizarre.
It's kind of a clap moment too, you're kind of like,
well, because he unexpectedly gets up from being whacked in the face with that other fertility idol or whatever that was. And then, like,
the Clockwork Orange thing, or
trips over and goes, forehead first into this coffee table. And it's like, oh no, is he going to get up? But, like, takes a long time to sort of reveal the under the table
shot.
That's a really cool shot, though, isn't it? How that's framed. Yeah. And it's just like the dripping blood, right? And it's really, really well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, the head wounds in Lost Highway are actually much more brutal than they are in anything else he's done, I would assume. I think that Dennis Hopper getting his head blown off wasn't as bad as Robert Loggia, because Robert Loggia looks like mashed potatoes by the time that they show him on the ground. Like, it's unrelenting. Yeah,
I do think that room with the yellow jacket man with the brain oozing out and the guy tied up, it also looks like a bit like a Francis Bacon painting to me. Just like contorted white pasty bodies with bright pops of color. Yeah, that's very violent. I mean, it sounds obvious to say. The other thing I just want to touch on, again, we're talking about all these actors that have been around Hollywood so long with such history. That's something that Lynch seems to love, is like a little bit of tie to like old Hollywood or just like popular Hollywood. And then, like, with Blue Velvet, Dean Stockwell was a child star in the 50s. Hope Lang, that's Laura Dern's mom. I mean, she's in like she's in one of the Elvis movies, right? Wild in the Country. Yeah. Bus Stop. She was, Bronson's wife in Death Wish. So, there's all these people that he's like pulling in, and it's across all of them. I mean, even up to it's Mulholland Drive. My favorite one is Ann Miller. That I love, and Lee Grant. I love that he gets them in there. Yeah. One of my favorite things of his is like merging his own like film obsession fanboyness, which feels so pure to his like innocence and wide-eyed like acceptance of the world and his own vision of the world. Yeah, to take in that like Hollywood history and then put it in his own, machine. I love that.
Doesn't Tarantino take shit for making films that only he would like? And I think David Lynch does the same exact thing, right? He's making movies to make the art, not really to impress anybody. They are entertaining, don't get me wrong, and they're awesome.
Yeah.
I'm entertained by them, but I don't think that's his point, I guess, or the reason
John
that
Waters puts Patty Hearst in his films. I mean, you know, I love directors that do that. They just like cast based on
like
what they want.
It's kind of like what happened in Sunset Boulevard, right? You've got a bunch of those old, I mean, you got Cecil B. DeMille in that movie, obviously, but then you've got all those old silent film actors as well. That's
Buster Keaton and
Yeah, the pharmacist from It's a Wonderful Life as part of the Waxworks too. Yeah.
Just to kind of bring in like this weird meta to tie it into the real world. Okay, sorry, that was kind of a derail, but
no, brings us naturally to Mulholland Drive.
I know that's true. Which
Takes
again,
us right
I didn't mean to bring this up twice, but I had no idea this was supposed to be a series that was kind of a follow up to Twin Peaks, and then it got re-engineered into a film, a very good film, and I'd say my favorite of these three, to be honest. But yeah, let's get into Mulholland Drive.
Let's do it. I remember watching this when it first came out, watching it a couple years later, and I just like never connected with it until this rewatch this time, which is like, for me, I was like, okay, it's very random. Great. There's this vignette and there's these characters, and like, the thing that I remember throwing me, especially toward the end, like even if I was already getting into it, like when we go back to the sort of, the homeless monster in the alley and the paper bag spills and the two little, like tiny people come out of it, I was like, okay.
It's like
lost
Phantasm.
Me. Yeah. But this time around, it finally clicked, and I get it why lots of people seem to consider this one of his best films.
I think it's his, I think The Elephant Man is his most accessible, but I think this one is also that feels like a Lynch movie that people could jump onto if they wanted an entry level of a Lynch.
It's my favorite. It's the one that I saw first. It's probably the one I've seen the most.
Is that why it's your favorite, you think?
I don't know. I mean, maybe if I saw, I think this and Elephant Man were the first two, because the poster, so Spencer's Gifts in the mall had all these movie posters when I was a kid, and I knew a lot of them. Yeah, and I knew like Jaws, of course, but there was always this one of the embrace and the font. And I remember the employee at one point reacted like, "Ooh, Blue Velvet," and I was like, "That's such a weird reaction." As a kid, I clocked it, so that led to me seeing Blue Velvet very early, and then Mulholland Drive, I think first. Yeah, Mulholland Drive, and then Blue Velvet, and then Elephant Man, because of it being very staid and Oscar-y, and
coming out of the gate and getting 9 Oscar nominations, I believe, for that film. That's not bad for a director, including Best Director, I believe, for that film.
It's pretty cool. It's great that he gets this a stamp of approval early on that kind of allows him to do things that other people weren't afforded to
from old Hollywood. An old classic Hollywood director is like saw a gift in this guy. He kind of gave Mel Brooks, giving him the shot, and it was kind of like that's David Lynch's whole dream coming together right there.
Yeah, exactly. Have you guys been to the Tower Theater Apple Store in downtown? That's Silencio. That's the interior where Silencio is filmed. Yeah, now it's an Apple Store, but it is the most beautiful
LA?
Apple Store. Downtown LA, one of the on the that row with all the I think it's Theater Row with all the old Hollywood theaters,
$1 Million Theater and all that.
The Tower Theater is now an Apple Store. It's gorgeous. I would you can just go inside and wander, and but that's where Silencio was filmed. The exterior is different.
I'll come out of there with an Apple Vision Pro and waste $2,500 going there just for this. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, and only talk to them about the Silencio scene from Mulholland Drive. You'll make some friends.
This is a recording.
I also love that this debuted with Shrek and Moulin Rouge at Cannes.
Wow.
It was part of that class. Also The Piano Teacher. There are a lot of other good films, No Man's Land. But yeah, just Shrek and Mulholland Drive, just to kind of hang a lantern on them being in the same year and the same atmosphere.
This was a big winner at Cannes, Mulholland Drive?
I don't think this did win. I know he won for Wild at Heart, I believe, right? I think that was his big Palme d'Or win. I could be wrong.
I can't remember. No, I'm blanking. There's one year where he gets Best Director when Joel Cohen gets For the Man Who Wasn't There.
Oh.
It might be this year.
It was 2001 for Man Who Wasn't There, so yeah.
Okay, so it is. This is he gets the co-direct the director with, but they share it. Yeah.
Yep, that was that year. Exactly. Just looked it up. Good memory. Yep.
But yeah, for me, I don't know if I hadn't been in LA at the time trying to be in the film business, if I would have been as wowed by Mulholland Drive. It was almost too much to be sitting there just feeling poleaxed going, this is it. He's captured LA. I can't say what the film means, or all I know is it went right into my nerve centers as, no, he has condensed and represented Los Angeles to you, in particular what it's like to be in the film industry. And there were so many scenes. I was like, that monster behind the diner, that's like every meeting you take, there's this weird feeling of darkness and dread that you can't even say what it is.
That's great.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's some existentially awful thing that's lurking in it, but at the same time he gets the awesomeness of Hollywood. So when he's presenting Naomi Watts and Laura Herring as the Nancy Drew part, and they're just both so you can't look hard enough at them. They're so beautiful. They're in outfits that are cut so tight but so well that they're both erotic, and yet you're just classy. It's mind-bending how perfect the casting, how overwhelming the quality of physical gorgeousness and charisma and everything else. He seems to be able to recreate something Hollywood used to be the best in the world at, which is, we will find you the person, it'll be flesh and personality and some X factor in the camera and costuming and all this stuff, and you will be stunned and gripped, and you will never forget it. And again, you won't even know why it means anything to you. We'll just be so great at our ability to find you the star. And he did it. He does it with two people we never heard of in our lives, Naomi Watts and Laura Herring. You're like, who are they?
Right.
And he's like, I don't know. I saw Naomi Watts' headshot and went, her. And you're like, what?
That's the girl.
When you see the girl that was shown to you earlier today, you will say, this is the girl.
Oh, yeah. That's her. So it's even hard to describe. Like, if you loved the old Hollywood ability to do this probably quite monstrous thing, but still riveting thing that was hugely meaningful for generations of people, and that they are now very, very bad at as a role. To have him revive it was just stunning. Like, how has he learned how to do what the studio system took decades to refine into a system? And he's doing it right here in front of us. So it has, again, both the kind of gorgeous, awesome qualities and all the dark underpinning. So for me, the most sickening violence I ever saw isn't even an act of violence. It's the decomposing body of Diana Selwyn in that bungalow. Yeah. Which, again, like the monster behind the diner or the homeless person, you don't even know which. Is it victim? Is it, you don't even know what you're looking at. It's the most horrifying scene, but you felt it all along, of this body in the bungalow. And the bungalow, it's like, that's so LA. That's so old LA, that little bungalow setting. And to see her rotting corpse, it's just like, yep, that's underneath all of this. is the people coming from not only all over the country, but all over the world with all their little dreams, all trying to get somewhere. Your chances are almost nil. And yet they throw themselves into this meat grinder system, and you can just feel it while you're there. It's terribly disturbing, and the longer you stay there, the more you feel it. I used to try to describe what it was like to people who've never been at the epicenter or near it. I shouldn't even say I was at it. I was at the outer fringe, trying to even make it in the independent film world. So really the outer fringe. I'm telling you, it's like The Ring, Gollum's The Ring that you're trying for. And you see people get nearer and they get horribly corrupted. You lose friends because they go crazy. All of the drama that you could see in that movie happens. It all happens. So I was just like, this is awesome. He is the only person who's ever captured what it's like to ride around in the Hollywood Hills to those houses, those modernist houses, to a party or whatever. It's exact. That's exactly those magical yet dreadful rides up into those hills on Mulholland Drive. He's got it. So
Mulholland Drive?
And his ability, I swear, he attributes it to meditation and all this that frees him creatively, or whatever system he's got. I didn't even know. Yeah. But lots of people can try to do Lynch, as you've already pointed out at the beginning in your intro. And they can't do Lynch because they haven't connected to whatever crazy set of forces he can get into and then find ways to represent, which are overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And it's always the same thing. It's always, sure, there are nice things in this world. There are good things. There are things we love. But what's it sitting on top of? It's always sitting on top of a mound of churning beetles and death and destruction and despair. Always.
And which ended up what Twin Peaks ultimately ended up with as well,
absolutely.
Right? It's this idyllic town with this veil. And once you cross that veil, you're in the darkness. And that was the ultimate darkness. Yeah.
Because you can't stay a kid or a Boy Scout or whatever David Lynch was when he grew up. You can't stay that forever. What I love also about him is he won't lie about himself. He's like, I'm still the Boy Scout. I can't help it. But at the same time, I'm the Boy Scout who did what Jeffrey Beaumont did. And you have to do both. And he's honest enough that he's like, Boy Scout doesn't go away, but it becomes transformed by all of this other stuff. And if you can't look at it, that's worse. Even though you're forever changed by looking. And I think that is the film noir, if you will, philosophy. If you can unite all of these vast numbers of very different movies, that's the appeal. Look at it, delve into it. It's the only way you have to. You have to look at the world you're in. And it'll change you, and probably not for the best, and you'll find out very nasty things about yourself and how much you belong in this terrible place. But you've got to do it or you're not a complete human being. And that's why they're not depressing films. And that's why David Lynch isn't a depressing filmmaker. So that's my whole spiel right there. Yeah. I'm done.
Hell yeah.
Mic drop.
No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
I'm going to take her over there.
Yeah, big time.
Oh, I thank you, Betty. And I really mean that sincerely. I mean, it was extraordinary.
I think, and also you're so close to it. That's the maddening part. You drive past these buildings and being like, I know that there's a meeting or people talking right there. And from having done stand up and, I'm still kind of involved in the comedy world. You meet people that the city contorts that have been here a long time, and they are almost like a David. This might be an ungenerous statement, but they're like out of a David Lynch film sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
kind of caricaturous.
Right. I think that the screaming shots of the Hollywood sign or downtown. I saw this at Vidiot's last week. I was fortunate enough to nab a ticket. And it occurred to me something I'd never really thought about before watching this film, is that it's almost like a demon flying above the city. Not to really bring. Do you get that feeling? It's like a sort of a dark gravity above the city in this place, and maybe the forceful removal of an indigenous people. Willing a town to exist in a desert landscape that becomes a gathering place for gnarly, gross ambition. I think it sours the land, to borrow a Stephen King. I think it contorts. Do you know what I mean? I think that there's something embedded the same way that if you unpack Twin Peaks and the nuclear explosion and something being, planted,
released.
Released. There's something in the atmosphere just slightly left of our perception, almost like pasted on this landscape that we're not aware of. The ghosts of the landscape, whether it's the Black Dahlia or just the charnel house of young people that come to this city and then go, old Hollywood is so riddled with these stories, desperate stories. Yeah. We touched on Yvette Vickers on the Sunset Boulevard episode, found in her apartment.
Which, Jesus, how much did that sort of tie into the Diane story in Mulholland?
He had to pull some of that, right? Some of those real life things. Yeah.
Yes. And by weaving in real life, by weaving in the land, it's almost like it has like a psychogeography. Planting it on Mulholland Drive, this road that really shouldn't exist, is a constant threat. It's precarious. When the vistas of the city it provides almost looks like a simulation board, with the world, and then the mountain. It looks fake, and it's very real and horrible, and it's a lot of people eke out a desperate living out here. Sadly, that doesn't even matter anymore. Now that I guess you moved to Santa Fe, Atlanta, or Vancouver, you'd be better off because that's where everything's shot. So, I love how this film approaches the city and celebrates it and is in love with it and is so honest about the nightmarish patina. I love this film. I love this film.
After all, where did David Lynch want to live? L.A.
Totally.
Decade after decade. He loved L.A. When people would say, why? He'd say, it's something about the light. And you're like, the smog-filled light?
Yeah. Oh, my God. And
it does reflect the sunsets nicely.
For the 3 out of 4 of us who have been here for the past couple of weeks, and like like after the fires, after rain, the smog rolled in, and you couldn't see, like last weekend, you just couldn't see anything, like 100 yards away. It was crazy. It was really nasty.
Wow.
Alex, I really love that idea about the poison land thing, and the name of the film and the street that it's talking about, Mulholland Drive, is named after William Mulholland, the civil engineer guy who brought water to L.A.
robbed the Owens Valley, robbed a bunch of farmers of their land,
which is 250 miles away, and like destroyed the Owens Valley to bring in the water here. And this is like the story that's sort of fictionalized and dramatized in Chinatown, but anyway, it's right there. It's right in the name. So your point is well taken there.
No, that's a great connection. I didn't connect it to William Mulholland. L.A. So many L.A. landmarks are tied. I live next to Griffith Park. I mean, Jay Griffith, the man that I believe shot his wife in the head in a William Tell sort of shooting game gone wrong, who then went to prison, came back, and was like, you know what? I'll make it up to the city by giving you a park and an observatory. Yeah. People rejected the observatory, but when he died, the city said, oh, you know what? That's a good idea. So they built the observatory. So even Griffith Park, which apparently
was Bill Pullman from Lost Highway.
Yes, exactly. He came out of prison, Balthazar Getty, though. So
exactly.
That's why we're okay with it.
Yeah. So our most basic landmarks here are, as they probably are. Oh God, the South. All over names of families. Slaveholders. Right. LA has it too, and we just kind of don't think about it with the sunshine.
It's not just limited to LA. It's the entire country. But It's fascinating how well you're right. I guess both of you guys, Eileen and Alex, were like saying he captures this idea of like, for that first whatever it is hour or so of Naomi Watts' part of the story, where it's like there's that sort of now iconic shot of her sort of leaning back and just like looking and dreaming up into the stars, and her she's got her elbows up and hands behind her head, and then it dissolves to the palm trees, and the blue skies as far as the eye can see, and she's got this like perfect all along the way. That's what it is, and then she's got this like this perfect starry-eyed dreamer look on her face, which is just so beautifully contrasted with the later on when I guess she's switched back to Diane and she's like masturbating in that cabin or whatever, and like the rack focus things on the I don't know what that is. Is it a cobblestone sort of chimney? Or fireplace inside the house there, and like and she's not having a good time there. It's just like it's like this. He really and I think this is what it is, and maybe this is what you're responding to, Eileen, with Lost Highway. So in Mulholland, because of that, because you get those two sides of Naomi Watts, and you get that contrast, like all of a sudden the sort of ugliness like feels uglier. Whereas if it's nothing but ugliness, which is sort of what Lost Highway is, like you also don't feel the contrast as much, because that is also not what real experiences feel like. There are highs and lows. It's not just
can't have the sweet without the sour, man.
Yeah, being stuck in hell, which is sort of what the Lost Highway is. And Mulholland like really, really, really captures that. Like, you're right. There's this whole dream thing. Like she whisks her way in easily into being the best actress in the world, and
gives the best audition ever.
Gives the best audition
within
ever.
a movie,
like all these people are like, this is it, this is the girl, and all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh, well, and if I could just interject, that's another of the weirdnesses where people say, well, you got the sweet Betty who's just the fake dream projection, but I'm like, well, how does the sweet Betty fake dream projection come up with that audition? Right. If it's that simple a split. Suddenly, out of nowhere, she pulls this darkly erotic performance. It's like mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing,
And you're like, I don't think that goes with that idea of Betty that you have.
Exactly.
So.
The Leave It to Beaver Betty isn't going to be able to do that type of performance. And it's like there has to be something inside her that can do that. And we see that. And again, sort of like Lost Highway, that there's like two sides to Betty. I guess in Lost Highway it's just like two different people who do the exact same thing, so it's not two sides, but it's just two bodies that do the exact same thing. But
or it's equally demoralizing either way. So like I was really struck, just quick segue back to Lost Highway, the dark-haired Patricia Arquette that we first meet. She's so recessive. Her voice is all pulled back. She's agreeing with everything he says. She's trying to like placate everything he says, but of course he suspects that she's cheating all the time. And you wind up with good reason to think by the end, obviously, that all of these things, got done. And then the other one is the femme fatale, ultra sexy, very sexually assertive, and then turns on you and betrays you and says you'll never have me, or whatever. But either one seems like a kind of terrible, limited kind of, you're stuck in a role quality without breaking out of it.
And I think this is like what you were referring to earlier in Patricia Arquette's interview, where she talks about her interpretation of these things.
Yeah.
And I to me that's what kind of resonates, is that like this film puts you, the audience, inside the sort of perspective of the Bill Pullman Balthazar Getty character. And so you see her in those terms, and like, hey, I'm not going to go stay up all night at your fucking nightclub. I'm just going to sit home and read. And like, his like,
read.
He doesn't believe it. And everything that we see of her, including her literal projection against the wall, is him projecting what he, is afraid of and, despises in her. And like, the idea that, she had lovers before him or whatever, and it's like tearing his like, brain apart. And then when we see him turn into somebody else, it is someone much younger and much closer to adolescence, where like that type of thinking, it's more prevalent, where it's like, no, like, and the idea of the possession and everything else that character's dealing with. But you're right, like, she is supposed to be the same person. At least I think so.
It's only one person. We get that later, that she is only one person. Yeah.
Right. In the sort of
picture.
There's only Renee. There's no Alice.
Right. And then that line too. And yet, she, as you're pointing out, Eileen, like, gives a fully different performance of like her being very coquettish in the Renee persona, and her being very sort of forward and, like a lot of agency and like a lot of mystery in her femme fatale persona. But it's all very interesting, but it's like it's so horrifyingly nightmarish that it's like something you don't want to interact with, because it's so ugly, like all of it. Just because you're part of like Pete and whatever is like his like ugly way he views the world.
Yeah. Even if you think about Vertigo, which has some similarities. There's that whole breakout that seems uncharacteristic of the rest of the movie, but is a huge relief, where suddenly Judy comes out of being entrapped in Jimmy Stewart's vision of her.
Right.
It's where she's suddenly brown-haired Judy going, I'm stuck in this. How do I get out of it? Should I leave town? Should I whatever? And you're like, whoa! Yeah. We were not expecting to get Judy first person kind of
right. In this movie, she's like doing that confession letter or whatever.
She's doing a confession. Yeah. We see her decide to stay to see if she can get him to love her. I don't know.
The voiceover, it's the most jarring switch.
It's so jarring.
I love it. Yeah.
And I love it. Exactly. Because Hitchcock had just an absolute, speaking of the demonic, ability to kind of read what does the audience need to happen here. Yeah. And he was right. As jarring as it seems, it's exactly what you need. because it makes everything else so emotionally crushing in a way it couldn't have been.
Absolutely.
If we didn't know Judy. But here we can't ever know her.
We can't know
We're
her.
just permanently barred, and we're kind of stuck with Bill Pullman and Balthazar Getty.
Yeah.
You know, that in that headspace, I think that's why it seems so. It's in many ways a great movie, but it's so unpleasant.
Yeah.
in the way you're describing.
Yeah.
Well, my thing with Lost Highway, it is a little immature to. It's almost. It's not self-knowing in a way. It almost seems like self-parody to be David Lynch and begin your song with a movie with a song called "Ooh, I'm Deranged."
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a great song.
Like someone like doing like
awesome.
a bet. Oh, it's a great song, especially when it comes in a cappella at the end. I love that.
Secret struggle.
It's a little on the nose, right? It would be like if the song was like, "Dreams, what are they?" You know,
no, it's deranged.
yeah. I just to go back to Mulholland Drive for a sec. The idea of one thing that happens in a lot of Lynch films are these like Goombas, like these mobster lackey kind of ominous white dudes in suits, right? Something you see a lot.
Yeah, set dressing.
Right. Mulholland Drive, I feel like so much of what Mulholland Drive is about is like chance and randomness and just like, why this person? Why not me? Why me? Why not this person? Why did this person leave me? Why can't it be like it used to be? Right. All these things that are just kind of left to just the fate, just meaninglessness of life, if one wants to put it like that. I love that Lynch ascribes that sort of chance and variety to these like unseen Goomba backroom powers, right? In a way that doesn't really exist at all. I mean, Eileen, you're right. There are closed circles. There's backroom decisions of agents and publicists and producers. But I think that now we're living in a very conspiracy-minded world, right? So there are people that think that Hollywood is run by the West Coast liberal elites, the Illuminati, satanic cults, right? And it doesn't help that LA has always been a city that, Scientology, it's been a host to fringe religions and beliefs and sort of one's personal spin and interpretation of spiritualism. The fact that exists here flatters that conspiracy and makes it almost seem real. In a way, it simply isn't. So much of success in any sort of artistic medium is random and it's chance and it's meaningless, but Lynch gives it the human skin form of these like Goomba lackey tough guys that in noirs would just be carrying out like the enforcement of a mob boss. Here it's like they're chaos agents of fate, and I love that's his use of a noir trope to just like make reality. It's almost like they're telling the ocean to have waves and tides.
So would this specifically be like Brad Dourif's lackey character? Is that like kind of who you'd be?
Totally, he's an example from Blue Velvet. I mean, they're in Loges guys in Lost Highways. And they're in Inland Empire. They're in a lot of his films.
I just think I like in Blue Velvet that they gave him more of a personality. It's like, especially because it's a Brad Dourif character, and he really does Brad Dourif it up a little bit.
Oh, he's great. He's great.
On Mulholland, or are you talking about the sort of Michael J. Anderson, it's Mr.
Michael J. Anderson is the big Mr. Big.
Yeah.
Right. And there's the lower level people. Yeah. And there always are. Yeah.
Dan Hedaya with the eyebrows.
Dan Hedaya.
Right. Dan Hedaya. Yeah.
That whole conference table full of guys. But I do think, again, it reflects a paranoid feeling you can easily get in LA when you have to take meetings and there's always a lineup of people around a table. Yeah. Always. It's like, why do we need 8 people to meet with me, so I can pitch an idea or whatever? But there's always this sense of slightly mafioso-like intimidation built into the simplest transactions that could totally make someone, especially like
outnumber the other party, right? You just always it's just always something to create that sense of uncomfortable. Yeah, it's fucked up.
This is the girl.
Hey, that girl is not in my film.
It's no longer your film.
If we are wrapping this up, and I think that, great female-led noir, Woman on the Run, 1950, set in San Francisco. Clear plot, clear goal. Mulholland Drive, women-led noir, takes you into a different viewing experience each time. It changes with me, it changes with you, it changes with us. It's my favorite of his, I think for a reason. Yeah.
If you want me to go away, I'll go away.
I haven't really, if we want to talk a bit about Lost Highway, very ungenerous to the female character, women in general. It is just playing with very simple, Betty Page versus, I think it's Barbara Stanwyck from Double Indemnity with the blonde wig. I think that's the look. But there are so many parallels to so many existing noirs. Weirdly, Mickey Rooney only did a couple noirs, but he did two where he plays a mechanic, kind of like
what
seduced.
Was it called?
Drive a Crooked Road and Quicksand. I actually like Quicksand more because it's a little weird. It has Peter Lorre and it's filmed on the Santa Monica Pier. But both of them have a mechanic being seduced. So,
Paul Zargetti.
Yeah. Also, have you guys ever been to All Season Brewing Company off of Wilshire on La Brea? It's in the historic Firestone Tires building. They still have the old fire.
That was the gas station,
sign,
right?
That's the gas station where they all work. Just if you guys ever want to grab a beer or a taco, it's a great little spot, and we can appreciate the Lost Highway filming spot,
which is fairly new. That they kind of turned that into a new spot, right? That was.
I think so. I think it was like just before COVID that it
just looked like it was just a gas station for the longest time, and I think that they're just using it for filming locations. Yeah.
Yep.
What'd you change it for? I like that.
Well, and certainly there was the blonde versus brunette, and then they'd swap. So Barbara Stanwyck having the blonde wig, which often would have been on the head of someone who's supposed to connote virtue. Now you swap it.
Right.
It's also a great movie that recognizes how familiar this is now, and does another twist, which is called Narrow Margin.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Where,
the train.
Yes, where the dark-haired woman who's supposed to be so bad turns out to be the female cop who's trying to guard the safety of the gangster's wife, who is going to, I guess, testify. She's being guarded and protected. And he thinks she's like a Grace Kelly, lovely, gracious lady. And then she turns out she is the gangster's mole, the blonde. So the whole, all your stereotypes, man, are wrong.
Yeah.
Is so overt in this 1952 or something film, which is the least likely time for this to happen. It's the world of horrifying, misogynist cliches, but there it is.
Yeah.
Because it was a familiar enough thing that noir could twist it even further in undermining expectations. So that's nice.
I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites for that reason, because it's Marie Windsor is so great as the trashy, apparently dark-haired gangster's mole, and she always played, slutty, mean, memorable women, and then she turns out she's this heroine who gets sacrificed, and it's really nicely done.
Was she in The Killers? Was that Marie Windsor?
No.
No, that wasn't Marie Windsor.
Gardner. Trying to think of, she's usually in Bees.
The Killing is what you meant.
She's in The Killing.
The Killing. Yeah. That's what the
she's
Kubrick.
Excuse me. Wife.
The Killing. Excuse me.
She's so vicious to what's his face?
Lou. No, we're all thinking of the same guy.
The great character actor.
He's in Rosemary's Baby. He's in Rosemary's Baby.
Elijah Cook Jr.
No.
Elijah Cook Jr. There we go. There we go. Yes, Marie Windsor. She's fantastic. Thank you so much for flagging the Narrow Margin comparison. It completely.
I had vaguely hoped something was there was going to be a third layer in when I first saw Lost Highway. I thought, and then he's going to do something with this. Insistence on the brunette and the blonde, and then but he did something else.
And then they were going to get swapped on a train.
I do see Touch of Evil. I did see some Touch of Evil in this, the Desert Hideaway, the motel.
Yeah.
Also, it's funny that Robert Wagner's, is it his stepdaughter is in this? Natalie Wood's daughter?
Oh, yeah. She's
Natasha
girlfriend.
Yeah, that's a hell of a casting to put in here. Especially also that, after
Robert
the film
Blake
came
is
out.
in this as well, though. So.
I know, that's my favorite part. He's great.
He's
I wish he had been in. I wish he'd been in so many Lynch films before. Of course, he did a very Lynchy thing.
Yeah.
Ask me.
I know.
In real life. But at least Lynch could appreciate how gifted he was.
Yeah, did Lost Highway infect him with that idea?
I know. It's a little.
Was it
creepy,
right after that happened? He killed his wife, right?
A couple years after.
So it was like 2000 or whatever that happened.
I love Bill Pullman's reaction. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was born to be in Lynch films, that guy. Yeah, that's a shame. It's only that little role.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've met before, haven't we?
But there's also just the highway thing, which, you know, the greatest inheritors of film noir for my money are David Lynch and the Coen brothers. Yeah. And they both do just brilliant work with the qualities of American highways, especially at night. Yeah. And they just, you see them in some...
Blood Simple. Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yes. Exactly. Or Fargo.
Even Raising Arizona has great highway stuff.
Yes, that's
great.
It really does. Yeah.
Always great highway. Because they're so definitive of the American experience that they have to be there. But like most people can shoot highways and you're like, I was so.
Yeah.
And this is a way that's insidious.
You put a badass Bowie song over it, and you've got a pretty awesome highway scene there. And
you got Detour, you know, big Detour parallel. You know,
the road is big in The Hitchhiker. Ida Lupino's great, and terrifying film noir.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's lots and lots of road movies that are also film noir.
And an echo to another film noir. I guess there's two echoes to this film noir in Lost Highway. Is like the shack that we see like exploding in reverse. Reminds me a lot of the end of Kiss Me Deadly.
Yeah, Kiss Me Deadly.
And then the like insane misogyny and Kiss Me Deadly is also sort of represented here.
Yeah, there you go.
That's true. Another brunette and blonde.
Yes, right.
Pairing in that one. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Call me. Dial your number. Go ahead.
Very short soundbite just to mention the influence of the Black Dahlia, the murder of Elizabeth Short, on Lost Highway. In Lost Highway, Patricia Arquette is bisected, just like the actual true crime story. She has black hair, very Betty Page, but also Elizabeth Short-coated. I'm sure this is something that Eileen can talk about as well, especially given the ties to noir, the name Black Dahlia coming from Blue Dahlia with Alan Ladd and Veronica Lake. I would just be remiss not to throw this in there. Thanks so much, guys.
That's fucking crazy, man.
Last thing is Jack Nance, last movie for Richard Pryor, and last movie for Jack Nance.
Oh, wow.
Jack Nance, very mysterious death. I think it met with friends and had a head wound, a bruise on his head, and he said he got in a brawl outside of a Winchell's Donuts. So you have head wound and donuts, very, you know,
very
things
Lynch.
in the
very Lost Highway.
And then I think he died. He was found dead in his home in South Pasadena.
Oh, no.
But you know, you hear about these people, celebrities who, you know, get I think Bob Saget, like, mysterious head wound, and then, you know, falls asleep thinking they're fine. So yeah, just want to, you know, flag that weird.
And if you bump your head or something, like, don't think that it's nothing. Like, I know, I agree with you fully. Yeah, the Bob Saget thing bothered me.
It's very upsetting. Very upsetting.
This is definitely a trend. Every time you're on, Alex, we hear about some celebrities passing and
some celebrities
mysterious, a way of going out. Yeah.
I'm telling you, film noir, and Eileen, I'm sure attest. There's so many old Hollywood actors that meet such tragic ends that are just not talked about at all nowadays. So it's it's kind of sad to hear it happen to one of Lynch's crew as well. You know, and I think that being moved for the fires, I don't know how true this is, but the emphysema and having to like relocate from the fires, I think that might have hastened his decline in health. So it's just been a rough January.
I mean, I know he talked about how he couldn't, you know, basically leave his house now because of his emphysema so bad, and then he had to leave his house and the air was terrible, and one wonders.
What's going on? It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, guys, for having me back.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, thank you. And thank you, Eileen, for coming again. We do need to make this a little bit more regular of an occurrence, though. I didn't realize it was since Val Luton that we all talked, and that's 2 or 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
That's way too
long.
long.
Flies when you're not having fun. Huh?
Thank God January's over.
Either way,
It does either way.
Bring on February.
Yeah. Oh, wait.
Yeah, it's just getting worse. All right, Eileen, please let everyone know at home where anyone can follow you on the interwebs.
Film Suck, Patreon podcast. We're just today we'll be recording our episode on unexpected love stories in honor of the upcoming Valentine's Day.
All right.
Which is hard to find in movies because cliche runs rampant on that subject. So we're really having to dig.
Is The Thing and The Fly included in this?
Oh, that's a good one. I wish I thought of it. That's an excellent one. You've played this before.
Yeah. I always thought The Fly was one of the best romantic comedies.
That's really good. Good. And otherwise, just writing for Jackman Magazine. I'm now currently reviewing. I'm finishing it up today. Love Hurts, which is one of the worst action comedies. Unfortunately, it's terrible.
Ke Huy Quan didn't come with another one here.
No, I feel so bad for him. Like personally bad for him. It just tanks like all over the landscape. Really awful.
That sucks.
I'm sad to say, but yeah, preview of the upcoming review.
And Alex, where can folks follow you?
OnlyFilmNoir on Instagram. I'm going to be doing some themed posts for February, and my writing appears in the Hard Times and elsewhere. OnlyFilmNoir is kind of where I post a lot of my portals. You can find my stuff via there, and just staying busy as usual in LA, writing away. So
we'll find you in the bungalow one of these days.
Ooh. There that's the goal. That is the goal.
That way you become part of the landscape. Yeah.
Well, what it is I have a black and white headshot, and I'm meeting with a guy at Winkies later. So it's like, this is her. This is who. This is
Don't
who.
go to the dumpster. Yeah.
And I got to LA via a jitterbug competition inexplicably. So
it's uncanny, the parallels.
It's been great to meet you, Eileen.
Wonderful to meet you.
Great to meet you. And really enjoyed our chat, and really cool. I actually wrote down some of the things you said as like, that's a really good point about noir. So thank you for helping expand my love of the genre. So I really appreciate it.
Oh my God, and thank you.
The Grindhouse Institute making connections here. I love it.
Yeah, and great to see you guys as always. Great to see both of you. And seriously, all season, let's get a drink at the Lost Highway Garage sometime.
Oh yeah.
I'm down, and we can go to Bloodso's, get some barbecue.
Sweet.
Oh, there we go. Very nice. Very nice.
Well, yeah, this is a great episode. Love the chat. Thank you guys so much for coming and joining us.
So I guess we've saved the best for last.
Do you want to tell them?
No, you tell me.
Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to subscribe and follow us on all the podcasts and social platforms at the Grindhouse Institute. And if you really want to give us a boost, check us out on any podcast platform and leave us a rating and review. It helps us to get noticed. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll be back next time.
Ciao.
Do you want a video camera?
No. Fred hates them.
I like to remember things my own way.
What do you mean by that?
How I remembered them. Not necessarily the way they happened.
Dick Laurent is dead.